We are very sorry, but your husband will never be able to see again.
I'm blind, but I can see people's souls, and when they turn red, then it's too late. I had always been a man who saw the world in vivid color. My eyes, a striking blue, were my defining feature. People said they sparkled like the ocean on a summer day. At 28, my life matched their brilliance. A cozy apartment in Portland, a job as a graphic designer that paid well enough, and a girlfriend, Mia, who laughed at my terrible puns. I noticed the way sunlight danced through leaves, how rain painted the city in streaks of silver. Life was beautiful, and I saw it all. Until I didn't. The accident happened on a Tuesday night, just after 10 p.m. I was driving home from a late client meeting, the road slick with autumn rain. A truck veered into my lane, headlights blinding, tires screeching, and the world exploded into chaos. Glass shattered, metal crumpled, and my head slammed against the steering wheel. When I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, the world was gone. My eyes were gone. The doctors told me the damage was irreparable. Shards of windshield had severed the optic nerves. I'd never see again. At first, the darkness was suffocating. Mia stayed by my side, her voice trembling, as she described the sterile white walls of the hospital room I'd never see. My hand shook as I traced the bandages wrapped around my head, feeling the void where my eyes once were. The nurses whispered about my recovery, but I barely heard them. I was drowning into black, mourning the colors I'd lost forever. Then, on the 5th night, something changed. I was lying awake, the beep of the heart monitor a steady rhythm, when a faint glow pierced the darkness. It wasn't light, not the kind I remembered. It was a silhouette, shimmering and indistinct, hovering near the foot of my bed. My breath caught in my throat. The shape was human, but it pulsed with a deep, angry red, like blood glowing under a spotlight. I blinked, or tried to, though the reflex was useless now, and the figure vanished. The next morning, the hospital buzzed with grim news. 3 patients had died overnight. An elderly woman in room 312, a teenager with leukemia 2 doors down, and a man recovering from surgery across the hall. I overheard the nurses murmuring about unexpected complications and bad luck. My stomach twisted. I didn't know how, but I knew that red silhouette had something to do with it. Days passed, and the silhouettes kept coming. Not all of them were red. Some glowed a soft, neutral hue, pale blues and greens like watercolor stains against the black canvas of my mind. They weren't vague hallucinations. They were people, or something tied to them. I could sense their presence, their outline sharp, in a way my ruined eyes could never have managed. One day, I asked Mia to describe the orderly who brought my lunch. Tall, skinny, brown hair, she said. I nodded. I'd seen the man's soul, a steady green flicker, just minutes before. It hit me then. I wasn't blind, not entirely. My sight had shifted, rewired. Where my eyes once caught light, my mind now glimpsed something deeper. Souls, I decided to call them. I didn't need a visual cortex to process them. They burned straight into my consciousness, raw and unfiltered. The normal souls, green, blue, gold, belonged to the living, the healthy. The red ones, they were harbingers. Every time I saw that crimson glow, someone died within hours. When I was discharged a month later, I kept my new ability secret. Mia drove me home, her voice bright with forced optimism, but I barely responded. I was too busy watching the souls drifting past the car window, faint glimmers in the void, a blue soul in a pedestrian crossing the street, a green one in the driver of a pickup truck, and then a red silhouette in the back seat of a taxi. I didn't turn my head, couldn't, but I heard the distant wail of sirens minutes later. Another death, another confirmation. Months slipped by and I adapted. I learned to navigate my apartment by memory and sound, though the souls guided me too, their glow a strange compass in the dark. Mia stayed, patient through my silences, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her what I saw. How could I explain the dread that gripped me every time a red soul flared into view? I witnessed them everywhere, at the grocery store, on walks in the park, even in the coffee shop where Mia read me the newspaper. Each red silhouette was a clock ticking down. Car accidents, heart attacks, a fall down the stairs. I couldn't stop them. I could only watch. One crisp April morning, 7 months after the accident, I stood in my bathroom, splashing water on my face. The routine grounded me, a tether to the life I'd once had. I reached for a towel, then froze. A red soul flickered into existence, not across the room, not down the hall, but right in front of me. My breath hitched. I turned my head instinctively, though it made no difference, and the silhouette stayed locked in place. It was my reflection, my own soul, burning red in the mirror. Panic clawed at my chest. I stumbled back, knocking over a bottle of soap, and called for Mia. She rushed in, her voice tight with worry. "What's wrong? Ethan, talk to me." I couldn't explain, not fully, but I grabbed her arm and rasped, "I need a doctor, now." At the hospital, the tests were a blur. Blood work, scans, and EKG. I sat rigid, the red glow of my soul pulsing in my mind, brighter than ever. The doctor returned with a frown. "You're lucky you came in," he said. "We found a clot in your lung, a pulmonary embolism. Another few hours and—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. My hands trembled as they hooked me to an IV, pumping me full of anticoagulants. The red faded from my vision by nightfall, replaced by the familiar green of my living soul. I'd cheated it. For the first time, the red hadn't won. After that, I started paying closer attention. I couldn't predict the deaths, couldn't warn anyone, but I could save myself. The red souls still appeared, still claimed their victims, but I refused to let them take me. Life settled into a strange rhythm. Mia's laughter, the hum of the city, and the ever-present dance of souls in the dark. A year after the accident, something shifted again. It started with my neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, a widow who lived downstairs. I had seen her soul before, a steady gold, warm and constant. But one evening, as I passed her door, I saw something new, a red silhouette, faint and wispy, drifting toward her. It didn't hover like the others. It merged. The red sank into her gold soul, staining it like ink in water, and then it was gone. The next day, Mrs. Delaney collapsed in the hallway, not dead unconscious. A stroke, the paramedics said as they wheeled her away. My gut twisted. She hadn't died, but the red had touched her. 2 weeks later, it happened again. A green soul in the park, a red wisp slipping inside. Hours later, a scream. Someone had found the man seizing on a bench. A brain aneurysm, fatal this time. The red souls weren't just death omens anymore. They were something else, something active. They didn't only mark the dying, they infected the living. And the more I saw, the more I wondered, were they souls at all? Or were they something darker hunters, reapers, parasites feeding on life itself. One night, alone in my apartment, I stood before the mirror again. My soul glowed green, steady as ever, but as I stared, a faint red shimmer appeared not within me, but behind me. It drifted closer, its edges curling like smoke. My breath stopped. The red wisp hovered, then turned, gliding toward the bedroom where Mia slept. "No," I whispered, lunging blindly, but I couldn't stop it.